So I'm gonna teach you how to do your time lapses without recording the alt tabbing and changing of windows and your Discord, your Facebook Messenger, your private stuff. So you're only going to record once the window is in focus. So if I choose Photoshop as like the focused window, it will only start recording then. But if I switch to say a Chrome browser or a Firefox browser, it will pause the recording. So we're gonna set up OBS on how to do that. You can also change it to like say you use Blender instead of Photoshop, so you can also do that. So first off is you need to install OBS, of course. And once you've done that, I'll put a link down in the description. Once you've done that, head over here. I'll also put a link. Go over to this link, go to download. Then there's some instructions here on how to download this. There's a provided installer, so it will do the installing for you. And also, if you don't have this, the C++ doohickey, you just need to install it also in your system. If usually you have this installed if you like install other games, they need that to run or something else. But if you're not sure, just download this and like get the appropriate 64-bit or 32-bit for your system. If you don't know what your system is, if you don't know it's 64-bit or 32-bit, just go search for it. You'll find the answer there. All right. Once that's done, if it's your first time opening OBS, usually you'll find this one. So it's asking if how you want to use OBS. You can answer that, but we're just gonna go over the settings again. So I'm just gonna cancel this and go to settings, and then on output you need to put it to advanced instead of simple. In advanced, go to recording. We're not gonna stream, so this is for time lapse. If you're looking to streaming, go find a video somewhere else about that. But if you want to record the time lapse, go to recording, and then right over here, it's very important that this is in MKV format, because if it's not, if something happens, like a crash happens, you won't be able to get the corrupted file. Say Photoshop crashed and your OBS also crashed. If this was MP4, your whole recording would be deleted. But if it's in MKV, you can still salvage it, and it would still be readable for video editing software and the like. And also for this one, I think it's usually use stream encoder, and it also says here recordings cannot be paused, which is really important for us because we're gonna use the pausing mechanic to basically pause every time we switch our focus on our windows. So just use X264 or NVIDIA something. I'm not really sure what this does, but if you're not tech savvy, just go for X264. That's like the standard or like the usual way of going about it. And for this one, just use CBR and 2500. It's okay. You can go look up like what these settings do, but since we're going to be recording a time lapse and each frame doesn't really matter in the long run, since we're gonna speed it up anyway, having like a constant bitrate of 2500 is usually enough for us. Alright. And then you can use very fast or ultra fast. I use ultra fast because my PC can handle it. Alright, next up is the video. Over here, so these two, to save on like computing power, just make these two the same. So if it's 1920 over here, just make it 1920 on the lower one. And it also depends on you on if you want something, say, little smaller, so you'll have less file size, or if you just wanna say post this on Instagram or Twitter, which does a lot of compression and you won't get to leverage the HD resolution that you have. So if you're planning on just uploading these time lapses on those kinds of websites, you can use 720p or 1280 by 720. But if you plan on recording this and uploading it to YouTube, I suggest going to 1920 by 1080. Alright, so once you have that, let's go over to like this bar over here. If your UI might not be the same as mine, I think this one is over here and this one is over here for the default one. So just look for the scenes and sources and you'll have no trouble like following this tutorial. Okay, so look for this one, scene and sources, right? Those are two very different things. Scenes are like, think about scenes as like a stage where actors perform, right? And sources are the actors. For every scene, you can have one actor or a bunch of actors. You can have an actor play in different stages, right? So it's kind of like that. All right. So we're gonna set the first scene, which is what we want to record. So in this scene, we're gonna add an actor or a source, and depends on what kind of source you want to use. I usually go for display capture since that's going to record everything that's seen on the monitor. So basically what you see is what you get. It's kind of like that. So it's much easier to understand it this way because you're recording the screen, and if it's not visible, it won't be recorded. Something like that, right? Let's say I want this to be our monitor source. Then, oh, you can see my other screen. But yeah, so basically, if you choose either of these, I have a 2-monitor setup, so I can just set this one on, say, the second monitor, and everything on the second monitor is going to be recorded. But if you only have one monitor, that's totally fine. You can still follow this tutorial, but you kind of have to juggle between the windows to like see if like the proper window is recorded. But we'll get to that. Anyway, so I'll use display 2 since this is my second monitor, and you can use capture cursor or disable this if you want. I usually like showing the mouse because it helps other people know where I click on stuff when I'm doing the time lapse. So if you choose 720p, there's a chance that it would look like this, right? And it's not on the proper size. If that happens, just right click, go to transform, and stretch to screen. Right. If you choose monitor source, you can see that the taskbar is visible. I usually don't like it when it's visible. I think it's cluttered looking, so I can just press Alt, then click this. You need to have what do you call that? Transform stretch to screen enabled first. So once you have that, once you press Alt and click on this bar or this point right here, this control point, and drag it up, you can kind of crop it away, and now you have a clean looking display source. So anything that's like shown on the taskbar won't be recorded. Alright, so that's one way of adding what you want to record. Another one is this, or a window capture. So a window capture is like you're not going to record what's happening on the screen, but what's only happening with the program. So let's add window capture, and I'll name this window, and just search for Photoshop over here on the window. So you can see this is my other screen where I'm recording this tutorial, but we're just gonna look for Photoshop. Okay, so for you to see this, Photoshop has to run. So you won't be able to click on this if like Photoshop isn't running on your system right now. You'll also see the other programs that are open here. So you need to click that, and okay, and then do the same thing, which is you go to right click, transform, stretch the screen, or just Control S. Okay, so the reason why I don't recommend doing it this way is if I right click, you don't see the brush panel, right? And say if I open a window, so I open the layers panel over here, but you see it's not visible over here since it's only recording what's happening in the program on this specific window. And this layer style window has a different title and everything, so it's much harder to track what windows are open and what you want to record as well. That's why I think it's a bit more confusing if you're gonna do it this way. So if you want to show like the pop-up boxes, as well as, say, I'll drag this over here, and like this one, so you see the windows, the options here aren't visible in the recording. So if you want to show that, you need to go for monitor source, and once I do that, it will show up as well. But the upside to this is if I say have a notepad. So if I have a notepad open on the same monitor, right, and I type something over here, you see that it's not being recorded into our feed, right? But if we use monitor source for that, it's going to be shown. So there's that. So choose which approach you like best for your purposes, but in my opinion, I like it as monitor source. That way I don't have to think about like if something's not showing up or not, because I also like to teach some of the stuff I show in time lapses. So it's important for me for others to see what I'm clicking on. And let's rename this recording scene. Alright, now I'm gonna add another one, which is the pause scene. For the pause scene, we're not gonna add anything at all. So we're just gonna use this black screen over here. If you don't have any sources, by default it's going to be a black screen. So we're already okay on that. So just focus on making this recording scene, right, and add another one and name it pause. Now that that's done, I'm gonna use monitor source. I'm gonna maximize this, and I'll disable this so it doesn't look confusing. Now let's go to advanced scene switcher. This will only show up if you already installed this. So there's lots of options here, but don't worry, we're gonna only touch 2 of them. Yeah, only 2 of them, or I guess 3 of them. So we're gonna think about the title, the executable, and general. So the title, I'm gonna redo these, and the executable as well. Okay, so this is inactive by default. You can just start it just to see like the changes. Okay, but for the title, I'm gonna add like you can choose over here on which title you want to use, but basically if there's a match, it's gonna go to this scene using this transition if it's focused, right? So I'm gonna direct this to notepad, and that will cause a scene change to go to the recording scene, right? So I can go to notepad right over here. What you would want to do if there's a title called like Messenger or Discord, or just Chrome, the Chrome browser in general, we want them to go to pause using the cut transition. That way, whenever we alt tab out of Photoshop and go to Discord, go to Chrome, and go to like your Messenger app, it's gonna pause the recording and not record any of your personal information. But if you name it this way, it's not gonna work, because what you need to add is a period and an asterisk on before and after the name or the match. Say I want this one. What that basically means is anything that comes before Messenger and anything that comes after that, consider that a match. So it's just gonna use Messenger as that word. If it finds it on any title and you clicked on it and it's the active window, it's gonna consider it a match. So what I mean is, it's much easier for me to use an example. So I'm gonna use Notepad and I'm gonna use WordPad. So these are these are 2 different Word documents, right? So I have go to pause, then go to recording scene using cut. Make sure this is checked, be focused. So I have these 2 programs open. So if it's WordPad, it's going to record, and if it's in Notepad, it's going to pause. But you can go over here, say I cleared this out. So you can see that the Untitled lost an asterisk, right? So the title, the window title changed. That's why if I move between these two, it won't change the scenes anymore. But if I add some text over here, it's gonna start switching again between the two. So it's important for us to use like flexible titles. That's why we're gonna use the period and asterisk. So go over here. So instead of that one, we're gonna use dot asterisk notepad and dot asterisk afterwards. And instead of just document WordPad, we're gonna use this one. So no matter what title this is, as long as there's a notepad and there's a WordPad, it will consider it a match, right? And that's what you want to do for, say, Firefox. If it goes to Firefox, we want it to pause because, you know, I'm probably watching YouTube on my Firefox browser, so I don't want that to be seen by other people. And you know, I also go to like my personal information websites and social media, so I don't want that to be recorded. You can also add Discord, and just, you know, just in general, look for the one that you want over here. That way you have like, you can customize this to the programs that you use and the windows that you interact with, not just, you know, with mine. I'm gonna keep Notepad and WordPad just to have another, just to use as some sort of demo, right? But if you look over here and go to Photoshop, if you search for Photoshop, nothing comes up because in Photoshop, it doesn't use the active, where's that? So let's go to Photoshop. Okay, here. So this is the Photoshop window title, and that's not really useful because lots of things over here can change, right? So instead of title, we want to use executable, right? And that's like the biggest thing about why I want you guys to like use this scene switcher instead of the default one over here, pre-installed with OBS, because it doesn't have that executable function. So we're gonna remove that, go over to executable, add one, and just go search for Photoshop over here. So when Photoshop is running, go to recording scene using cut transition, and also click on this only if focused. That way, if Photoshop is running but it's not focused, it's not gonna switch scenes and unpause the recording, right? Okay, so after that, we want to add another script, and in this script, we basically just want to use the default scripts available to us. So add script, and you can see you have pause scene over here. That comes pre-installed with OBS, so you're gonna have no trouble finding that. Open that up, and on the pause scene, just choose pause, close. Okay, so if we're gonna enable preview, so if everything we've done is right, if I go to Untitled, if I go to Notepad on this text, if I go over here, it will go to the pause scene and pause the recording. If I go over here, it's gonna unpause the recording. Let's also add this Windows always on top. Alright, so if I start recording now, you can see that it's already recording and I can pause it whenever I want. But if I go to Notepad, it's gonna be paused because it switched to the pause scene. If I go to WordPad, it's gonna unpause because it switched to the recording scene. And if I minimize this and go to Photoshop, it's going to do the same thing. If I go to Notepad, it's gonna pause. If I go to Photoshop and click on that, that's the active window. It's gonna unpause the recording and let it roll. Some other stuff to keep in mind. You can use whatever executable you want. Say you want blender.exe. Just make sure it's open so that you can see if it's the right name. But as far as I know, that's Blender. And do the same thing if you're a 3D artist, right? you can do the same thing, or do it this way because Blender has Blender on its title. It's not like Photoshop where it has a weird title. So you can just use this method instead. Or you can also use, say, I don't know, Clip Studio Paint, or Affinity, or Illustrator, or Krita, or whatever you want. So that's why I really like this, because it's really flexible for what kind of artist you are and what programs you use, and you can just adjust it accordingly. All right. The pause tab, you might think this is for pausing the recording. It's only for pausing the triggers. If you don't know what that means, don't think about it too much. It's not what you think it is. So yeah, I guess the last thing would be to export this and like save it on your desktop or whatever, because every time I think OBS updates or like something updates, there's a chance that you might lose the settings that you have. So just export it to save the settings and re-import it whenever that happens. There's also lots of other things you can do here, like, you know, if your cursor hovered a certain area, you switch over to a different scene, or stuff like that. This is a really powerful plugin for OBS, but either way, you're only going to use title and executable, and that's gonna be all right for your purposes. Another thing to keep in mind, when you record stuff and stop recording, it's going to be an MKV file, and that's not usually read correctly by Premiere Pro or other video editors. So you need to remux it first. So you can either go over here and remux recordings and choose the file that you want to remux, or go to settings and then advanced and click on this one, automatically remux to MP4, which is basically gonna remux it automatically for you, and you don't have to like click on the file every time you stop recording. But as far as I know, this is going to double the size. So you have an MKV and an MP4, and the MKV won't be deleted after it's been remuxed. So you need to somehow delete that MKV file and continuously clean up your hard drive so that it doesn't take up as much space. But other than that, yeah, that's about it. So hope you enjoyed. Yeah, thanks for watching.